This is a beef chuck. Beef chuck should be really inexpensive meat, much cheaper than, say, short rib. Short ribs become really popular, and whether you get it bone in an awesome, like short little 3 bones, a nice tall stacked up piece of meat, cross section, or you get like a boneless short rib plate, you're gonna spend more money than you would for chuck. Chuck comes off the shoulder, it's tough, it requires a lot of love to get it nice and tender and falling apart, but it's great for making beef stew, or for cutting into, kind of bigger pieces. And we're gonna make this look like a slow braised short rib without having to spend the money on short rib. So cutting this piece of beef chuck, you have to kind of look at what you have. If you have a 3 to 5 pound piece of meat, you're gonna have to look at it and decide what makes sense for portioning this. If you just go by weight and you're like, I'm gonna make however many 8-ounce pieces, good luck. It's not gonna cooperate like that. This particular piece of chuck, it just worked out that it made the most sense to cut it into 7 like size pieces. So that's what I did. After you have it, cut and portioned how you want it, you're gonna have to tie it, because there's a lot of seams and connective tissue here, which is what makes it amazing. But if you don't tie it, it is gonna fall apart as you cook it. And in that case, you might as well have cut it up into little chunks and made beef stew. But we're not making beef stew. We wanna have like more of a portion of meat on a plate. And tying them is gonna be important for that. It's gonna help hold them together so you can handle them with tongs and cook them in your braising liquid. So to tie them, it's real simple. Like if you go granny knot and then like kind of loose and then a granny knot on top of it, then you can slip it down up against the meat and kind of cinch it down and then pull it tight and then get like a granny knot on top of that and then trim off the excess and you should be good. If there's any really weird ones, you could go around with like 2 times and really lock it down if you feel like you got kind of a sloppy piece. After they are tied, of course, we're going to season them with salt and pepper. Season them pretty generously. I did this same day, so I salted them, peppered them, and they sat for a few hours under refrigeration. And then after they're well seasoned and they've been sitting for a while, we need flour. And flour is really important here because it is going to help seal in, create a protective coating to seal in juices, create browning, which is going to give us good flavor development. But the flour also serves to thicken our sauce. And I mean, that's kind of the whole amazing thing about braised anything, the sauce. And we want our sauce to have a nice viscosity, and the flour is going to help us have a sauce with that quality. And we want to not just have big chunks of wet flour on the meat, we want to be able to kind of pat it off and have like a really thin, even coating, so that like there's not chunks of flour falling off in the pot and burning up. So flour it, pat it all off, and then here we go into the pot. There's some canola oil in here. It's nice and hot. It's got like that hazing thing happening, so it's not going to stick. And we're going to get dark brown color on pretty much all of the sides. And there's going to be some weird sides where it's just not going to make sense to really get good color on them. That's cool. Don't worry about it. Just do as much of it as you can. Make sure you don't overcrowd your pot, because then you'll steam them. All the flour will flake off. And then it's kind of what's the point? So you want to make sure that everything's hot and there's plenty of oil on the bottom. We're going to discard this oil, so it's okay if there's a decent amount of oil in the pot. But get it nice and dark brown. And then from there we can remove them. And in this particular time of making these guys, I decided to discard the oil and discard there really wasn't any brown bits. Like I did a really good job keeping the flour on the meat and searing it really well. So I didn't really have a mess of stuff on the bottom. If I had like a bunch of flour and meat and juices all caramelized on the bottom, I would have deglazed it, just some water, and scraped all that off and saved it. It just didn't really happen that way. So I washed the pot, cleaned it, reset it, back on the stove, olive oil, get it hot, 5 smashed cloves of garlic. We're going to brown up the garlic, nice light golden brown, get some good flavor development. And then we're going veggies, carrots, celery, onions, and we're going to cook them down until they're caramelized. We don't want to just sweat them and make them translucent and tender, because then we're going to have like a really sweet vegetal kind of flavor. to what we're doing, and that's not what we're going for. We want that rich, roasty, caramelized flavor from the browned up caramelized vegetables. Don't forget to season them. You want to make everything as if you're going to eat them. So a little salt, a little pepper here is good. It will also help draw out a little bit of moisture and aid in the caramelizing of the carrot, celery, and onions. You could do these 3 vegetables separate and they would come out really, really amazing. Onions in the pot just as they are, and then carrots in a saute pan on the stove and then in the oven, and celery the same way. But if I'm doing this at home, I know I can get away with it in a pot, so no need to make extra dishes and mess. If I were in a restaurant, that's how I'd do it. I'd do everything separately, and they cook a little bit different than each other. So when you do them in a pot, they're not going to be as amazing as if you did them separately, but they still will come out excellent. See, watch. All right, so once we've got good caramelized color on our veggies, here we go. Big knob of butter, a couple tablespoons, and then mushrooms. And mushrooms are like 85% water. So they will release a bunch of liquid, and then from there, the liquid will evaporate, and they'll start to like brown up with all the veggies too. So we'll do that, get them browned up. And then tomato paste. And kill the fire, like drop it as low as it goes or turn it off. And you can see how this chunk of tomato paste, probably like 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, is having a hard time getting incorporated with my veggies. So, you want to kind of kill the fire so you can get the tomato paste dispersed through the veggies. And then, once it's all incorporated, you can turn it to medium heat and you want to toast up this tomato paste. We're looking to get some of the acidity cooked off, some of the moisture cooked out of it, and, get some caramelization on the tomato paste. It'll just take a couple minutes to get it where you want it to go. It's going to stick to the bottom, so stay close by. Don't walk away. You will burn your tomato paste to the bottom. I promise you will. Don't walk away from it. And from there, we're going red wine. And we're going to add just a cup of red wine here. Any red wine will do. Something that's like $10 a bottle, like a Robert Mondavi, a Kendall Jackson, or something in that pay grade. And we'll turn it up to low heat. And this is a big surface area, so this is going to evaporate fast, but I don't just want to cook my wine off or evaporate my wine. I want to cook it down and have it like sweeten up. So taste it, mix everything together, taste it. And then as you cook it down, you want to taste that everything kind of smooths out and kind of sweetens up, and you don't have that harsh alcohol edge of the wine, still remaining in what you got going here. So once it tastes nice and round and smooth, we're going to put our meat back in. We got our seared meat, standby, ready to go. It's going back in the pot. Fit all these pieces in. You want to try and make it so that when we do cover them with chicken stock, that they're all kind of equally covered. And we're not looking to make them swimming. We're not going to boil these. We're going to braise them. So we want just enough liquid to barely cover them. You should be able to move them a little bit. I mean, they're going to shrink up as they release their liquid and they cook, and they'll be a little bit more free to move in the sauce as they cook. So they might feel jammed up now, but after you check them after the first hour, you'll see like, oh wow, there's a lot more liquid in here than before. And all that's really just coming out of the meat. So if they feel a little bit jammed up, that's okay. But you don't want them starved for space. You want them to be able to move a little bit, but you don't want them swimming. Okay, so bring them up to a boil on the stovetop, and then we're going to cover it, and we're going to go into a 300-degree oven. And it should really slow down in there to like a very gentle simmer at about 300 degrees. And check it. We're going to check it after an hour. It's going to look like this. This is the speed that you're looking for it to be moving at. You don't want it to be raging, boiling in there. So you might need to adjust your oven temperature depending on how it's calibrated or not. But 300 should be good. These took about 4 hours. It went nice and slow. And I checked them with the back of a spoon. I have these really flat spoons. Look, I have one right here. And you could use like a serrated paring knife, but this was handy. And I'm looking for the spoon to pass through the meat with minimal resistance. Like you should be able to just like push it through and pull it out. And when you get that quality, you're good. And they're done. And you can decide, do you like your sauce? Do you want it thicker? Does it need to be reduced? So in my case, this particular time, I thought my sauce was a little bit thin. So that's easy to fix. I took the meat out and I put it on a sheet tray with parchment paper, and then I covered it. So it didn't just like evaporate and dry out and just trap all that moisture and heat and steam. And then you can see on the spoon here how thin the sauce is. So I cooked it down. I gave it like another 15 minutes just to adjust a little bit of the consistency, knowing that I'm going to strain out these veggies, and some of what I strain out is going to pass through the strainer I'm using. But also I can use all these vegetables that have been cooking in, with my meat as a thickener as well. And I chose to do that. Now you could strain everything out and have like a much smoother sauce, but I kind of like that rustic feel of just a little bit of, vegetable matter, vegetable debris in the sauce. Adds a little bit more flavor, a little bit more body. I like it. So you have a couple choices there. So you can see here I just scooped out, I'm going to call it probably 3/4 of a cup of my vegetable material. And, I had mashed it through with a spoon to pass it through the sieve. So I just took a couple spoonfuls, put it back in the sauce, and until I liked the consistency that I had. Everything went back in a pot. And from here I plated it, and I have 7 pieces. And this was a weird night. I was missing one of my girls. She was at an activity. So the 3 of us had slow braised beef shoulder. And here, end of the video, yeah, we plate one up. You can serve this with whatever you want. But the other 4 pieces, right, what did I do with them? So I iced them down because we have giant piles of snow in the backyard, so it's easy to ice things down right now. And got the sauce cold, got the meat cold, and I packed it up and put it in the fridge, knowing that those 4 portions will be a quick dinner later in the week when we got a busy night. So that's what I did with those. You could cryovac them and freeze them. Works great, just like beef stew, just like chicken soup, just like bolognese sauce. Kind of like a standby dinner that defrosts quick and heats up pretty easy. Just go slow, covered. Add a little bit of water or chicken stock if you need to. But the sauce should gelatinize after it's cooled, so it'll feel like, oh my God, where's my sauce? Don't worry, it's there. It just needs to warm up and melt down. On the plate, tomato ancini di pepe. Ancini di pepe is a type of pasta shaped like a peppercorn. Makes sense? Look at these little guys. They're adorable. And just, real simple tomato, garlic, a little marjoram, and then I caramelized some cauliflower and mushrooms and a little bit of kale. Just really easy, simple dinner. Meat on the plate, sauce it up, a little fresh Reggiano, a little sprig of marjoram. Done. Send it. So that's it. Slow braised beef shoulder. It's a cheap replacement for short rib. It makes it so you can have a hearty meal that requires a lot of work on the front end, but it's a quick dinner on the back end if you choose to, make extra and, have it available in the freezer when you want it.